Jason set the tone. I better get excited. Okay. I always like that. It's pretty bad when if you go to a place and they go, now we'll turn the time over to Brother Bartlett. Okay. We got some enthusiasm here, which is great. I'm excited to be here. It's good to be back. Some were asking, how long's it been? It's been a while. And the fact that you remember, I'm sorry, I must have scarred you, that you do remember I was here once. If you have your Bibles, we're going to be going to Luke 22, and we're going to be looking for readers. And so don't be bashful. When I give a passage, you can be turning to it, and then I'll ask somebody to go ahead and read. We'll share the wealth this morning. So, first we're going to read this text in Luke 22. And who's ever up for reading, there's a key phrase that we're going to focus on this morning. But I would like verses 39 through 44. 39 through 44. Who's up for reading? Hand and go. I'll give you the 2-second warning. Go ahead, Danny.
And he came out and went, as his custom, to the Mount of Olives, and his disciples also followed him. And when he was at the place, he said unto them, Pray that you enter not into temptation. And he was withdrawn from them about a stone's cast, and kneeled down and prayed, saying, Father, if you be willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. And there appeared an angel unto him from heaven, strengthened him. And being in agony, he prayed the more earnestly, and his sweat was were great drops of blood falling down to the ground.
Okay. A lot of things we can glean from this, but a phrase that jumps out to me in this reading is when it said here that the angel came and what? The angel came and strengthened him. The angel came and strengthened Jesus, God with us, the Son of God. Why would he need strengthening? There you go. See, this is the thing that we're going to be talking about today. We're seeing the humanity side of our Lord, right? And we're always looking to him for our example, which we're going to look at, the Lord willing, in the AM sermon today. Jesus is our great example in evangelism. But he's a great example for us here as we talk about this. When you look at a passage like Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 10, that verse always stood out to me because when I was younger than Jason at one time, and I was assigned to preach in a VBS, Brother Bill Hall said, Chuck, you're going to take Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10. Young preacher, one verse? You're kidding me. But what that verse says, he's writing to Christians, right? Ephesians, Paul's writing to the brethren there. And he tells the brethren, be strong in the Lord and the power of his might. What is that text telling us about ourselves? When you're being told be strong, or you tell it to anybody, be strong, what are you acknowledging about that person? That they can have weakness, right? I mean, that needs to be an accepted part about this, and this is what we're looking at here. And so when I think about this whole idea, how was Christ strengthened? And Danny read the very next verse, right? The very next verse, verse 44 that Danny read, he was in agony. Wait a minute. The angels came and strengthened him. Wait a minute. Well, how was he strengthened when nothing changed? I think there's a danger. We need to learn from the Lord. If we only get stronger if our present distress is removed, well, then we have a serious problem. Now, how many of us here need strengthening? There you go. We're not bashful to do that. We're not bashful to admit it. We all need it. Our Lord needed it. We need it. Now, I'm not saying that every day is a downer, and I don't want this lesson to be a downer, but we all need strengthening, right? We all need to be built up in our faith. And we're going to face hardships in our lives, and hardships come in different shapes and sizes. I want this passage read. Let's turn over there because I love Paul's attitude here, which I need to be mindful of because you guys ever have those down times in your life? And what are some of the things that cause down times? What are some of the things that can bring us down? What's that? Sickness, persecution, anguish, loss of loved ones. Anything else? Pressures at work. You know, have you ever had a coworker who treated you badly, or a boss that treated you badly? Like, it wasn't even a joy to get out of bed and go to work. That can be bad. Does anything else pop into your head that can bring you down? Forgetfulness. I forgot that one. What? Sin. Big one, right? There are times we feel like you want to quit. You want to give up. And that's actually going to come up in one of our 4 points, just a 4-point lesson that we're going to talk about in just a few moments. But we're over in 2 Corinthians, right? Chapter 12. And our reader is going to read verses 7 through 10. 7 through 10. And who has that? Go ahead.
So to keep me from being conceited because of the surpassing greatness of his revelations, a thorn was given to me in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to harass me, to keep me from becoming conceited. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this, that it should leave me. But he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecution, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong.
There's that last word, right? I want to be strong. That's the goal within all of this. And how can you be strong when you face distresses? Jesus was in distress, was he not, in the garden? He knows what he's about to face. He needed strengthening. The angel came and strengthened him. But wait a minute. The angel didn't come and take him out of the garden, and so he didn't have to go to the cross. You would think, that's how I want it. You know, when we go to God and we pray to God about the struggles that we are going through, we often might find ourselves thinking, the only way I'm going to be able to cope is if you can just take this away from me. Well, no. I think it's wrong to try to encourage somebody to become a Christian. I'm not dealing with that per se right now, but to let them think that once you become a Christian, no more problems. I mean, you tell them that, you're setting them up for the fall. I didn't become a Christian not to have any problems. I became a Christian to know how to handle my problems. Are problems going to come? I mean, there's just no doubt. We didn't bring up financial stresses of life, which happens, you know, and people that watch the news every day. Seriously, brethren went through some struggles, you know, well, don't watch it, you know. But things can just bring you down. Life can just bring you down. And we as Christians, we're going to learn some lessons here that's going to help us how we get our strength, and by looking at Jesus. Okay, so having said that, how was Jesus strengthened? Well, let me give some assignments here. I'm going to look at verse 44 in just a moment, but we need James chapter 4. Somebody, I'll get you to read that in just a moment. Somebody turn to Matthew chapter 6. We'll look at that. And then, of course, I'll just make reference to, and I'll make reference to it right now. Let me make reference to Job's wife. Okay. Was Job in distress? You know, there's the understatement of the year right there. Here he is. What kind of distress was he under? You could probably list them. Lost his family, kid, all his wealth, lost his health, and
Discouragement of his friends and his wife.
discouragement. And I was just going to get to the wife right there. His friends. What I love about that text, go over there in chapter 2 of Job. Those friends were to comfort him for how long? Yeah, when they didn't say a word, right? When they didn't say a word. They were great friends until they opened their mouths, right? And Job, and did he get the support that, I mean, if you really want support, you're going to get support from your wife. And what does she say? Curse God and die. How would that have solved his problem? It wouldn't have solved his problem at all. And so when you think about this, what I love about Jesus, and I'm getting back to this 44 that Danny read to us, and notice it. So the verse before that tells us that the angels came and strengthened him. Being in agony, he prayed more earnestly. So what did that tell you? What did Jesus do? I know he prayed, but what was he doing? Right, he stayed focused, right? He stayed focused. The goal that was there. I have responsibilities. And he has prayed 3 times, not my will, but thy will be done. I know what's going on to do your will. For us to be a Christian, do we face hardships? Yeah, to do his will. Even when we talk about in our AM sermon, I won't be able to get that feedback, which I always like. I prefer Bible classes over preaching any day. But we're going to notice that in preaching and trying to reach the lost, can you face hardships doing that? Well, of course. Does it jeopardize friendships? Yes, it does. And so there's a price to be paid. But for you and I, what I'm learning here is that, and who's got the James 4? Because this ties into this as far as keeping focus, keeping our eye. That's what's going to help us to stay strong, is knowing where we're going and keeping your eye on the mark. Don't put your hand to the plow and look back. You're not fit for the kingdom. Verse 7 and 8 of James 4. Go ahead, Adam.
If therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinner, and purify your hearts, you double-minded.
Okay, so here's Jesus. He's in the garden. Did he take his eye off the Father? Did he forget about the Father? See, that's not the time to forget. When people face hardships in life, you know what? They want to blame God rather than turn to God. They don't want to lean on him. And that, we're learning and I love looking at this stuff, because the stuff that we preach, we're on the front row. Preaching to ourselves, because, preachers, they never have any down times in their life, right? Life is great, we're up all the time, and people see that. But I'm saying for all of us, we need this. I need this, because it's easy to lose focus. And the focus would be, if you lose focus on this, what are you going to start focusing on? Especially whatever you're facing. The problem, if that's all you're focused on, then that becomes all-consuming. That's all you see. It's like the person with tunnel vision, right? And this is what breaks my heart. I don't want to get into this, because it's a sad thing when I hear people about taking their own lives. You get that tunnel vision, and you forget the big picture. You forget about family and friends and your future and all this kind of stuff. And I think this is the danger that I got to be mindful of, we got to be mindful of, is that when we have these things come up in our lives, family problems, right? Husbands and wives, kids, these things happen. And it becomes all consuming, and then we just forget why we're here and where we're going, and forgetting about our God. Matthew chapter 6 passage that we're going to have read here. Verses 6, 7, and 8. Who has 6, 7, and 8? Go ahead.
When you pray, go into your room, and shut the door, pray to your Father who is in secret. Your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And when you pray, do not heap up empty phrases as the Gentiles do, for they think that they will be heard for their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask Him.
Do we all know what you're all going through? Especially when you're really down, who do you think knows about your problems? Yeah, but when you're really down and you forget to be strong, you're thinking nobody knows and nobody cares. That's what can happen. That spiral. It is truly helpful, like Jesus in his distress, he prayed more earnestly, focusing on the Father. And I love this text. My brothers and sisters might not know what I'm going through right now, and I might not necessarily want them to know what I'm going through right now, especially when you talk about, if you have sin and you've taken care of it, but you just get so frustrated with yourself. But there's a comfort of knowing, and I just preached on this last Sunday. I loved it when Jesus talked about the publican and the Pharisee who went up to the temple to pray. What did the publican do? What did he do? He just beat his breast and said, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. He didn't forget about God. Was he acknowledging that he sinned? Yeah. But he didn't forget about God. What I'm just saying is, whether it's financial, whether health problems, whatever the situation is in life, remember, don't forget God, because of what we just read. He hasn't forgot about you. He knows what you're going through. People say, well, if God knows what I'm going through, this wouldn't have happened to me. You missed the point. You missed the point. The whole idea is that Jesus was strengthened, but the situation he was in was still there. That was not removed. Now, of course, you pray to God. We hope that you get the job. You hope that you can be a better husband or a better wife, and you're working on things. Yes, you have goals to overcome those problems that are there. And Jesus did, right? I mean, yeah, he did go to the cross. Yeah, he did die. But then what? Resurrected. Victory. Okay? We have to see down the road. Pretty good stuff there, just to be mindful of. How are we doing on time? You got to time these points and keep moving. Next, he gained strength to faith. I like this point. Just thinking about this. 1 Corinthians. We need a reader. In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, but I want somebody to go to Philippians chapter 4. That Philippians chapter 4. We've got a number of passages in Philippians. Great book that helps us to deal with different situations and our reliance on our Lord. But what we're being mindful of is that whatever does come up, I think this is what we sometimes forget. And we weaken and we don't get strong. 12 and 13 of 1 Corinthians chapter 10. What does that read? Verse 12 and 13. Go ahead. Okay, so how does that verse, the last phrase, pertain to what we're talking about this morning? How does that pertain to this? You have the ability. You can, right? I think I think when we have the problem and we're getting angry, you can just picture. Let's say a husband and wife are having, maybe it's financial issues, whatever, and they're just getting angry and angry. Well, the anger doesn't take care of the problem, does it? No, it's not there. What should they be looking for? A solution. Whoa, are there solutions? And the point is, this is what God is saying. I'll provide a way that you may be able to bear this. You can, whatever this is, you can handle this. So wait a minute. What if Jesus? But here's a problem here. You can handle this. You're going to die. You could die trying to handle this. Could we die trying to handle other problems? Well, yeah. The point is, the Lord is not going to allow us to be in a situation where we can't. And I think that would be good for if you have a husband and wife here. Say, look, I want you guys to know, if I was trying to help them, I'm not a counselor, but I'm a brother who loves them and cares for them, and I can give them spiritual guidance. And then I could tell this couple, now listen, whatever you're going through, God says you can handle this. And you can get through it. You need to be strong, right? You need to be strengthened. And look to Jesus and what he provides for us. And to me, that is so valuable. Now, the Philippians chapter 4 passage, 11, 12, and 13. Who's got Philippians 4, 11, 12, and 13? Go ahead, Randy.
Not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I'm in to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who
I've learned how to, what did he say there? I learned how to handle low, or how did he put that?
How to be brought low and
I've learned how to be brought low. Do you want to learn how to be brought low? I just soon not be low, but I've learned how to be brought low. Yeah, that's an amazing statement. But it's a learning process. I have learned how. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right? In other words, that's the key to all of this. And I just want us to realize that there's a danger out there. What's the danger on Facebook and seeing all these family photos or people on trips and things? What's the problem with that? Comparison. And what does it portray? It's perfect. Look at their lives. They're happy. I've told people we've got a photo of all our kids and our grandkids, 6 granddaughters. You want me to talk about them, I will. And so we got the whole family there, and people go, wow, what a nice photo. I go, you want to know what happened, what was going on 5 minutes for that photo? It was chaos. Kids were crying and screaming. And we had to call a couple. Janet, get over here. We're fine. Smile. Instant picture, right? It looks great. And there is a danger when we think that my life should be perfect. My life should be without any of these. Paul says, I learned how to be brought low. It's like, I don't want to ever be brought low. It's like the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are those who mourn. I don't want to mourn. I don't want to mourn. The guy says, I don't like to go to funerals. It's depressing. Well, I got a funeral to go to on Thursday. It's not going to be joyful, but in a sense it is, because here she is, a faithful member of the Lord. But the point is, it's better to go to the house of mourning than laughter, right? Because you can avoid this stuff but you still got to face it. We're learning nobody is going to escape hardship. You cannot escape it. You can't. So it's learn to do it. Guys, I've been asking you to read, and I've had the odd question, but if you got comments, jump in. Go ahead, Adam.
Many young people today don't like to go to funeral homes. They don't want to face that death, but that's a reality that we need to encourage our children to go with us to go to funeral homes, to see how fragile life is, and to be able to understand that more.
I like that. And I also like the fact of, parents, you can shield your children from difficulties. You don't want them to be in mind of all the problems you and your wife are going through as far as if there's finances. But there is a certain level of them being aware to learn that you guys are handling it and learn how to handle things. And, if all they see is mom and dad, when a problem does come up, them fly off the handle, children need to learn how you are handling that. And how you handle that is by leaning on the Lord, right? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And it's not just that. It's not just Christ. Because why did Jesus take some people with him when he went to the garden? You think about that. There's that human side to him. He gained strength, know that he wasn't facing this alone. Now, there was a very touching passage in 2 Timothy 4. And I would love your opinion, too, about how you think Paul was feeling. He's telling Timothy this is what had happened. But tell me how you think he felt when it did happen. So first we want 2 Timothy 4, verse 16 and 17. Who's got 16 and 17? Go ahead, Jason.
At my first defense, no one supported me, but all deserted me. May it not be counted against them. But the Lord stood with me and strengthened me, so that through me the proclamation might be fully accomplished, and that all the Gentiles might hear, and I was rescued out of the lion's mouth.
I love the second verse, right? I mean, that's pertaining to what we've already talked about. But Jason, how did he feel in the first verse? Like, why even bring that up?
Lost. Nobody was with me.
Nobody stood with him. Oh, okay. Why are you telling Timothy that? what would he have liked? I think he would have liked some brethren stood with him, you know. But I mean, he just stating a fact that when I was under this persecution, nobody stood with me. Would it have helped him if somebody stood with him? Now, obviously, that the second part of that, you know, he's leaning on the Lord. Look, if my brethren are not going to stand with me, if I have a difficulty and brethren desert me, do I have permission to desert the Lord? Obviously not, right? And so a person might say, well, Chuck, I don't need to support you because you got the Lord, right? So you don't need me. Well, is that true? In a sense, that's true. But I think that you and I need to know that Galatians chapter 6, verse 2, can we bear one another's burdens? Didn't Romans 12:15, weep with those that weep? I mean, we got to be there for one another, and we can be there for one another, Danny.
It's like Cain and Abel, and God said, "Never take care of Abel." I don't know. I'm not brothers keeper.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. The responsibilities that we do have for being there, that's what I love about my church family. Kind of felt bad for my brother-in-law. You know, he's looking after my mother-in-law. And that's where Debbie went to Tulsa to kind of help out. She's going through some problems there. But, you know, there she was. She needed some meds, but he couldn't leave her alone. Didn't have anybody. I told Debbie, I says, boy, I tell you what, we sure love our church family. I mean, if he had a church family, do you think somebody could have helped him out? You know, if he was a member of the body of Christ. Yeah. And I said, even if we knew, I haven't been out there enough, Debbie had, but even if I was out there a lot and I knew the church, the members there, I could have easily called them and said, you know, could one of you just go and get the medicine for him and that kind of stuff. I value church family. And we need to realize our brothers and sisters of the help that we can give to one another. And I'm going to tell you right now that if we had a brother or a sister, let's say a sister came in here early this morning, and I knew her name. I don't. I should. I tried to memorize. Is there a Gail here? No, there is. But is there a Susan? I think I met a Susan. Okay. Let's just say there's a Susan, wherever she is, and she's up here, and she comes early, and she comes up, and she's crying. And one of the first ones here, and I'm at the back, and do I go, he's up there crying, you might want to stay away from her. Would we do that? What would you do? You'd immediately go up. You'd immediately go up and, well, wait a second. What if nobody goes up? If nobody goes up, does she have a right to leave the Lord? No, we understand, right? We understand that, as Paul mentioned there, I'm going to lean on the Lord, and this person, Susan, hasn't left. She's here. Obviously, she's crying, that she's upset about something, but she could have stayed home. You know? But she's here, and that's good. But let us not forget that we can be there for one another. We can strengthen one another. We can encourage one another. And I believe if we have that Philippian passage still handy, it mentions in the 4th chapter. Let me get this. Philippians 4. Let me see. Yeah, right. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Nevertheless, you have done well that you shared in my distress. As he's talking to the brethren there at Philippi. Just to even mention that what they've been going through also with him. We're in this together is the point. You know, we're all on the same road, right? We're on that narrow road and we're going to heaven. We're going to help each other get there. And there's a comfort to me of knowing that we read earlier in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, whatever you face, is it rare? Is that what Paul says? Is it rare? What was that? Common. It's common. You know, you're not going to grab a tin cup and go, nobody knows the troubles. Really? Nobody can identify with what you've been going through? Don't ever think that, folks. And there's where your brothers and sisters can be a really big help to you. And don't hesitate to reach out. And I think about this because Jesus himself is being mindful of others that are around him and bringing people with him. And we've got more than enough time to deal with this. This, to me, really stands out. Go to Philippians chapter 1. Philippians chapter 1. Have you ever gone to the hospital to visit somebody where they encouraged you and you went there to encourage them? Yeah, I mean, wait a minute. Here I was trying to cheer you up. There was this lady, Bonnie Harness, in Danville, and when she was a baby, her sister wanted to give her a bath and just turned on the hot water. She was young, didn't know. Never walked a day in her life. It's always bedridden. And the members over there said, you ought to go see Bonnie Harness. I don't know who she was, so I went in there, Boy, you did not go in there with a sour face on you, She'd chew you out, because she'd cheer you up. You're trying to go there for her, and she'd cheer you up. And we have to be mindful of the benefits. I hope I remember to make this point, because repetition is good. I hope I make this point in the next hour, when we do the sermon coming up. But if you want to know how to stay on the straight and narrow, thinking about the lost of others helps you stay on the straight and narrow. Okay? I've seen people hurting so bad giving advice to others who are hurting. I'm thinking, why? You got your own problems. But that helps them. That's helping them cope with their problems by trying to help other people. And Jesus is a perfect example of this, because Danny stopped in verse 44, but if you go down to verse 46, this is really interesting. Luke, what was it? Luke 22? Look, we have verse 46. And to save a little bit of time, I want somebody in Philippians chapter 1, and I want somebody in Philippians chapter 2. We'll get there in just a few moments. But verse 46, let's pick it up again. So verse 44 said, and being in agony, he prayed more earnestly. His sweat became like great drops of blood falling on the ground. And when he rose up from prayer and had come to his disciples, and he found them sleeping from sorrow. Now remember, Jesus just needed strengthening, right? And Jesus, being in agony, prayed. But he says to them, why do you sleep? Rise and pray, lest you enter into temptation. What's he doing here? What's Jesus doing? Jesus, don't you have enough of your own problems? And did he just want to focus on his own problems? Did he try to get them to focus on his problem? He comes in, what are you doing sleeping? You need to rise. You need to pray. You need to, Jesus, you're concerned about me? Yeah, I'm concerned about you. You're about to go to the cross. Yeah, but I'm concerned for you. And I'll tell you what's going to help us to stay strong? Learn from Jesus. Think about others. And we have a sister at Kirkwood who's in so much pain. You can just see it. And we've had conversations where you do not go up to her and say, Teresa, how you feeling? We just don't do that. Because we all know. It's constant. Teresa, it's good to see you today. It's good to see you. You're such an encouragement. But we've seen her invite one of our members. He had a back injury, so he's at a level 8 pain 24/7. I mean, 24. He never gets relief from pain. It's a level 8 pain constantly. Constantly. She invites him over to try to encourage him. Why are you doing it? Do you think that helps her? Absolutely. I mean, she's got enough of her own problems that she's facing. And I think that we as brothers and sisters, we need to realize that, the good that we can do for one another, even though we're going through. Now, that doesn't mean you're ignoring your own problems. Is she ignoring her problems? She's not ignoring her problems. And I think that there is a tendency sometimes to, like, again, with tunnel vision, when you have a problem, then you cut yourself off. You cut yourself off. And that is so dangerous. Philippians, first of all, Philippians chapter 1. What's 12 and 13 read? 12 and 13. Who's got a lot of readers? I might read one here soon, too. Go ahead.
Now I want you to know, brethren, that my circumstances have turned out for the greater progress of the gospel, so that my imprisonment with the cause of Christ has become well known throughout the whole Star and everyone else.
Did you notice what he says in 12? I want you to know, brethren, that the things which happened to me have actually turned out. Had Paul gone through some hardships? Stupid question, okay. We know he's gone through a lot of hardships. I want you to know, brethren. I want you to know, brethren, that the things which happened to me have actually turned out for the furtherance of the gospel. Why tell the brethren that? Why? It would encourage them. It's going to help them. Now, is it possible that the Philippian brethren are going to face some hardships? Okay. The early church faced a lot of hardships, and they were warned about that, just like we are. You know, they will come, and that's the danger. Now, let's go over to the second chapter. Let's go to the second chapter. Any other comments? I don't want to pass anybody who's got some comments about what we've been dealing with here. Feel free. Jump in. Philippians chapter 2, verse 25 through 30. Who's got 25 through 30? Why don't I read? Hey, maybe you think I can't. Okay, so here we go. Yet I consider it necessary to send to you Epaphroditus, my brother, fellow worker, fellow soldier, but your messenger and the one who ministered to my need, since he was longing for you all and was distressed because you had heard that he was sick. For indeed he was sick almost unto death, but God had mercy on him, and not only on him, but on me also, lest I should have sorrow upon sorrow. Therefore I sent him the more eagerly, that when you see him again, you may rejoice, and I may be less sorrowful. Receive him therefore in the Lord with all gladness, and hold such men in esteem, because for the work of Christ he came close to death, not regarding his life, to supply what was lacking in your service towards me. All right. What do we gain from this text of what we've been talking about right now? What's Paul telling? And remember, he's telling this to the Philippian brethren. Why? Why talk about Epaphroditus so much? What could they glean from this?
It was such an encouraging thing for them. I mean, Epaphroditus was sick, and they were concerned about him, but he was concerned that they were concerned about him.
And Paul was concerned that they were concerned about, he had to fry the brain. It's just mutual consideration here, right? And I'm seeing genuine compassion is what I'm talking about here. And Paul, and what he's going through, what does he mean, sorrow upon sorrow? Why would he say that? Why would there be sorrow upon sorrow for him?
He's already got a bunch of things, and his close friend and brother that's helping him, but he died, it may get worse.
He's got enough on his plate, right? This would add to it. But again, he's telling the Philippian brethren this. Wow, Paul and what he's going through, and how that would be even more so of a burden on him, causing him sorrow. Wow, that is such an encouragement that would help Paul. And Paul is saying that knowing that you guys receive him, and so that I'm not going to have sorrow upon sorrow, you see what? Paul was going to gain some strength from this. That's the point of all of this, right? All of us need this. I want to become stronger. We're going full circle now. What's that one verse in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10? Brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Which says, we read earlier, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Now, does that mean that I can solve all my financial problems through Christ who strengthens me? No, it's not what he's talking about. We can handle whatever the devil throws at us, whatever life throws at us. Not everything is bad. I mean, what I mean by that, not everything is just sin. Sometimes you just get sick. Sometimes accidents happen. They do. They just happen. People say, well, I have to deal with that on our TV program. Oh, there's a reason for everything. Well, yeah, why did that tornado come through here? Well, I could get technical as a meteorologist and tell you why. There is a reason for everything, but people just fail to understand, sometimes bad things happen to good people. What verse would you use for that one? Sometimes bad things happen to good people, and good things can happen to bad people. Well, that's a good one. Look at Jesus. Jesus said the rain falls on the just and on the unjust, right? Sermon on the Mount. Which that means, if the rain falls, you got this farmer over here who's a crook, but he's got a good harvest this year. The rain came. You got this other farmer over here who's a good guy. Rain falls on him. So good things can happen to good people. And bad things can happen to bad people. But vice versa is also there. And we need to be aware of that. And so when I think about this, I think that getting back to what I quoted earlier in the Galatians chapter 6 passage, when he says, brethren, bear one another's burdens, so fulfill the law of Christ, you and I need to see that if we bear one another's burdens, we're helping ourselves. That's the point. Being selfish doesn't help you. And as we're our family and as we work together, we're called the household of God. I love the bonds that we built up here as a church family. It's so wonderful. And that's what, again, I go back and talk about how much I value the church. I value the church so much, man, I get pumped up. If there's a sermon, I'm trying to be pumped up for all of them, but there is a sermon this week that I'm going to preach that I'm already getting pumped up more and more as I get closer to it. And it's the one that is on how does the church lose its distinction? We don't want this church to be sin-stained in any such way. It's the pillar in the ground of truth. Okay, Chuck, shut up. You'll preach that later this week. Anyway, so with a minute left here, what did we talk about? The conclusion part about this. The angels gave Christ strength. The angel gave him strength. Their help gave Christ what was useful. Knowledge he wasn't alone. Courage to endure what was before him. It's not a sign of no faith in needing strength is the point that we want to drive home. Anybody got any closing thought here with 30 sec?
Like Peter in 1 Peter 5 talks about the devil is a roaring lion. He says, whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplishing the
Oh, powerful, powerful. And so if he's working on you, he's working on me. And if he's working on me, I know he's working on you. And we can get through this together. Thank you guys for your comments. I really appreciate that this morning. Take a few minutes now and we'll get ready for worship.